They thought it would stay locked within those sacred walls. But heaven is no longer silent. I kept it hidden in the conclave. Now the Church must hear it. The words echo like thunder through the marbled halls of the Vatican. Words never officially spoken, yet mysteriously lingering in the air like incense after Mass. Something was born behind closed doors. Not just a new pope, but a message, a decision, a divine shaking, and now it begins to emerge. Rome is watching, the world is waiting, and at the center of it all stands Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the man once whispered to be the Asian Francis, the quiet contender, the bridge between continents, hearts, and heaven itself. Just days ago, Pope Leo XIV, in an unprecedented move, appointed Tagle as the new titular bishop of the Suburbicarian Diocese of Albano, a title not just ceremonial but heavy with history. Why? Because that seat once belonged to Pope Leo XIV himself, back when he was still a cardinal, before white smoke crowned him the Vicar of Christ. Coincidence? No. In the Church, nothing is coincidence. This is more than a promotion. It's a passing of something unseen, a silent scroll, a prophetic torch lit behind the locked doors of the 2025 Conclave. And while the cameras only captured the white smoke, something else was happening inside those walls. They say Tagle handed Pope Leo XIV a piece of candy in the final moments, a simple, sweet gesture, or something far deeper. Was it comfort? Or code? A secret pact sealed in sugar? Because here's what the world didn't see. In that conclave, Tagle came close. Closer than any outsider would guess. His name burned on tongues. His presence stirred something ancient. The spirit moved, but the winds of heaven, mysterious as ever, pointed toward another. And yet, why does the spotlight return to him now? Why is Pope Leo XIII drawing him nearer, as if positioning him for something far greater than the Diocese of Albano could explain? Many call it a gesture of honor. But to those who understand prophecy, symbolism, and the choreography of the divine, this is preparation. Because in 2022, Tagle's name was entangled in the Caritas Internationalis management scandal, not as a culprit, but as a symbol. Though untainted by guilt, the headlines tried to stain him. But what if that was part of the pruning, the fire before the elevation? What if, like Moses in the wilderness, Tagle was being tested, refined, prepared for a moment such as this? And now with Pope Francis gone and Pope Leo XIV newly enthroned, something ancient stirs in the heart of the Church. The phrase, "I kept it hidden in the conclave." Now the Church must hear it, though born from a fictional film, has begun to mirror reality. For what is fiction if not a shadow of truth waiting to manifest? And while Vatican officials deny any such words were ever spoken, the silence from inside speaks volumes. Because even if those exact words weren't said, something was hidden. Something is now being revealed. You can feel it. In the tension of the faithful, in the unease of certain cardinals, in the sudden shifts of power and title, and in the unmistakable glint of destiny beginning to shine through the veil. Cardinal Tagle has been called many things: charismatic, compassionate, theologically gifted. But now, something else is emerging. He is being watched, positioned, tested again. The Church is approaching a storm. And when the winds rise, it won't be titles that matter. It will be who carries the message that was hidden, the one now begging to be heard. The question is, will the Church listen before it's too late? And so, it begins. Across the eternal city, bells chime as if to announce something unseen. Not a feast day, not a canonization, something else, something deeper, an unveiling. Hidden in the rhythms of ritual and wrapped in silence lies a truth that the Church has tried, perhaps unconsciously, to ignore. But heaven never forgets what is hidden. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. To the public, he is the smiling shepherd from the Philippines, a voice of gentleness, a bridge between East and West, a man of tears and prayers. But to those who were in that Sistine Chapel, who stood beneath Michelangelo's trembling angels as the ballots passed hand to hand, Tagle was more than just a candidate. He was the sign. During that tense conclave in 2025, while the world waited outside and pundits speculated, something sacred was unfolding inside. Whispers carried names, but one name never faded: Tagle. The votes danced around him, flirted with the possibility. For a moment, it was almost his. Heaven drew near. The dove hovered. But then, another name emerged. Leo. A name not spoken in over a century. A name that split the heavens like lightning. When the final tally was made, a new pope rose. Yet those who watched closely saw the weight in Tagle's eyes. He smiled, but he knew. Something had been entrusted to him. Not the throne, but something perhaps more dangerous. The truth behind the throne. And now, months later, Pope Leo XIII returns to that chamber of memory and does something unthinkable. He gives Tagle his former seat, the Diocese of Albano. It's more than a chair. It's a sign, a transfer, a seal. Why him? Why now? What does Pope Leo know that we don't? Rumors whisper like incense through Vatican corridors that Tagle carries a private letter, that he knows the contents of the Third Secret of Fatima, that he was shown something the night before the final vote. A vision? A voice? Some say he wept in his cell that evening, not out of sorrow, but reverence. He had seen something, and it terrified him. And then, there's the candy. What sounds like a moment of levity, Tagle offering Pope Leo a sweet during the final vote, has taken on a strange, prophetic tone. Why do those present still speak of it in hushed voices? Why did Leo himself recall it not with amusement, but with reverence? A sugar drop, offered during the holiest, most secret election on earth. A sign, a gesture, or a symbolic handing over of a spiritual burden. Because those who understand the Church's mystical body know this. God hides his messages in symbols, in broken bread, in wine, in the quiet tears of his servants, in the soft crinkle of a wrapper passed from one cardinal to another. What if Tagle knew then what would unfold now? What if he received something not of man but of divine origin and was told, not yet, not until the appointed hour, and now the hour may be near? The phrase from the film, "I kept it hidden in the conclave, now the Church must hear it," begins to sound less like fiction and more like prophecy remembered. Because who's to say that prophecy must only come from canon and creed? The Lord speaks where he wills, and the hearts of men, yes, even the hesitant, can become his instruments. There are reports, unconfirmed of course, that Cardinal Tagle has been seen, meeting in quiet, candle-lit rooms with select prelates. That documents, sealed in red wax, have been passed between hands. That certain phrases keep appearing in his homilies. Truth must be spoken. The time is short. Light reveals all. To the casual observer, mere metaphor. But to the faithful watching with spiritual eyes, signals. And then, there are the skies over. Albano, the night Tagle took his new title, witnesses claim they saw a strange flickering light, neither lightning nor flame, hovering above the cathedral for nearly 6 minutes. Some say it was a meteor, others say something else, a manifestation, a sign from heaven that what was hidden is being stirred, loosed, awakened. Inside Vatican walls, not all are at peace. Some fear what Tagle may say. Some want him silenced before he speaks, and some, those who truly understand, are preparing for his voice to shake the pillars of the Church. Because what if the real reason Pope Leo XIV gave him Albano was not to honor him, but to protect him? They are watching him now, not just the faithful, but the shadows, the hidden hands, the unseen faces behind centuries of Vatican curtains. Because once something begins to stir in the Church, something not made by man but whispered by heaven, it does not go unnoticed. And Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the gentle shepherd, the weeping priest of Manila, now walks with the weight of an invisible scroll. He hasn't opened it. Not yet. But it's there, in his silence, in his gaze, in the deliberate way he moves through Rome, not with pride, but with purpose, as if every step he takes toward Albano is a step deeper into prophecy, and behind him, the world stirs. Pope Leo XIII, who once carried that very title of Albano, knows what he has done. Some say it was a simple appointment. Others say it was a shield. But there are whispers that Leo and Tagle share more than friendship. That one heard a word in prayer, and the other was given the interpretation. The phrase rings again. I kept it hidden in the conclave. Now the Church must hear it. Not printed, not archived, not spoken, but carried, carved onto the soul, meant to be released not by voice, but by action. And now strange events begin to encircle the new Bishop of Albano, a locked drawer discovered in the old residence, sealed with a symbol not seen in public since the early 1900s, a sword crossing a lamb. A Vatican archivist assigned to investigate was found transferred to a monastery in silence. No press release, no explanation. Those who dared to ask why were met with only 2 words: internal reorganization. But those within the spiritual watchmen of the Church know better, because when the Vatican says internal reorganization, it often means someone got too close to truth wrapped in holy fire, and that fire is growing. In a remote town outside Rome, a statue of the Virgin began to weep on the feast of the Visitation, the same day Tagle officially received his appointment. Coincidence? Some say yes. But the tears weren't of oil or blood. They were clear, like glass, like light liquefied. And a child nearby claimed he saw a figure standing behind the statue, holding a scroll. When asked what the figure said, the child whispered, "It's time. There is a message. There is always a message. But God often chooses unlikely vessels, humble ones the world overlooks. And Cardinal Tagle has always been overlooked, passed over, underestimated. But not anymore. Something has shifted in heaven. The gears are turning. The veil is thinning. Within the marble corridors of the Vatican, doors that haven't been opened in decades are being unlocked. Not just with keys, but with prayers. Pope Leo is said to have entered the Archivum Secretum Apostolicum, the most guarded vault in the Church, and emerged pale, trembling, holding a single sheet of parchment. He handed it to a courier. That courier traveled straight to Albano. What was on the parchment? No one knows. But hours later, Cardinal Tagle was seen entering the chapel alone. He remained there for 6 hours. Witnesses said they heard weeping, and not the soft weeping of grief, but the guttural, shaking kind. The kind that comes when a man sees something not meant for mortal eyes. Some say he saw a vision. Others believe he was visited, but when he emerged, he was different. His face glowed, as if from within. And he said only one phrase: "We are not ready, but heaven is." And that's when the dream began to spread. Across 3 continents, nuns and monks reported visions the same night. A scroll being unrolled in the sky, a lamb crying out in Latin, "Ecclesia, audite me. Church, hear me." And in every vision, Tagle was holding the scroll. What is it that was hidden? What secret passed from pope to pope in whispers? Why now? Why Tagle? Because the time of hiding is over. Because the Church, for all her glory and splendor, stands at a precipice. And if heaven is releasing the scroll now, it means the time of reckoning is near. Not a reckoning of wrath, but of revelation. Of light that burns away deception. Of voices rising from silence. Of truths spoken not in press releases, but in fire from the altar. And Tagle. This man, this vessel, this once almost pope, he is walking toward the pulpit. And when he speaks, when he finally opens what was hidden, every corner of the church will tremble, every nation will watch, every soul will feel the ripple. Because this is no longer just about titles and politics, it's about the message that was sealed for such a time as this. The scroll is not parchment. It is a burden, a weight, an invisible fire bound to the soul of a man who never asked for it. But now, Cardinal Tagle carries it, not in his hands, but in his being. He moves through the corridors of Albano with a silence so loud it echoes. Those near him speak of a change. He prays longer, speaks less. Aides have noticed he now avoids mirrors, as if afraid of what stares back at him. But why? What has he seen? Or who has seen into him? In the early morning hours of last Sunday, Tagle was spotted in the garden behind the cathedral, alone, kneeling, not in prayer, but in dialogue. Witnesses from behind the hedges claim he spoke to someone unseen. His hands gestured, his head nodded, his voice trembled as if answering questions posed from beyond this world. And then he fell prostrate, face down in the soil, as though overwhelmed by the presence, not fear, holiness, that suffocating holiness that silences every excuse in the soul. He lay there for 37 minutes. And when he rose, he was not the same. That evening he preached without notes for the first time in decades. He spoke in Latin, then Spanish, then English, but many in the congregation claimed they heard him in their own native tongue. Polish, Swahili, Korean. One elderly woman swore she heard him in Aramaic. Impossible, or divine. And throughout his sermon, he repeated a line again and again, like a thunderclap wrapped in velvet. What was sealed is being opened. What was hidden is being heard. But what is it? What secret carries this much weight? Could it be tied to Fatima? To the hidden third secret never fully revealed? Could it relate to the mysterious resignation of Pope Benedict XVI years ago? Or perhaps to something older, deeper, locked away in the catacombs of Catholic memory? Some say yes. In hushed tones, scholars are beginning to reference the lost. Letter of Leo XIII, a document rumored to contain visions of a 100-year war between the Church and the powers of darkness. A document said to have been seen by only 3 men since its writing. And according to one cardinal, who spoke anonymously from exile, it is that very letter which was given to Tagle. Not to publish, not to archive, but to embody. Because the letter doesn't just warn the Church. It speaks of a man, humble, wounded, filled with light, who would emerge at the final hour to prepare the bride of Christ for her trial. And now all eyes are turning to Albano, not just the faithful, but the adversary. For every divine appointment carries a demonic resistance, and in the days following Tagle's appointment, strange attacks have begun. A fire broke out in the diocesan archive, burning only one shelf. The shelf containing early 20th century documents tied to Pope Leo XIII, security cameras. Disabled, witnesses, none. But among the ashes, investigators found a medallion scorched but intact, engraved with 3 Hebrew letters, Amtemet, truth. And that truth now pursues Cardinal Tagle wherever he walks. Rome's inner circles are in chaos. Some say Tagle must be silenced before he speaks. Others beg the Pope to protect him at all costs. And Pope Leo, he remains silent, as if waiting, as if he too knows the earthquake is coming. Then, just last night, a letter was leaked and died. Anonymous Vatican source published what they claim is a fragment of a prophecy scrawled in Pope John Paul II's private diary. The ink was faded, but the words were terrifyingly clear. A son from the east shall rise with fire in his bones. He will open what Rome has hidden. His voice shall thunder in tongues unknown, and he will suffer. The world is watching. What?
Started as a simple headline, Tagle appointed to Albano has now become a thread unraveling centuries, a sign of fulfillment, a prelude to revelation. He holds it still, the message, the moment, the thing kept hidden, and when he opens his
mouth next, it may not be his words that come out, because the church must hear it, not because it is safe, but because it is time. And now, the final hour draws near. Rome no longer sleeps. Beneath its cobbled streets and candlelit chapels, a spiritual trembling begins to echo. It's not war, not famine, not plague, but something far more dangerous to the rulers of shadows, truth wrapped in revelation. The kind that can break centuries of silence in one breath. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, once a whisper in papal circles, now a storm gathering beneath the cross, walks with heaven behind him and eyes upon him. The halls of the Vatican grow tense. Security has been tripled. Internal meetings are being held behind locked bronze doors. Names once trusted are being blacklisted. Something is coming, and the shepherds feel it. But it isn't a coup. It isn't politics. It is prophecy bleeding into reality, and prophecy, once stirred, cannot be silenced. They tried to dismiss him. They called him soft, too emotional, too Eastern, too merciful. But heaven doesn't pick its messengers by pedigree. It chooses those who break under glory, who weep before they speak, who carry the scroll long before they ever read it aloud. Tagle has been carrying it for years. And now, in a moment designed before time itself, the seals are breaking. Reports are flooding in from parishes around the world. Visions, dreams, spontaneous acts of repentance during Mass. A priest in Brazil claimed a woman stood and declared in a voice, not her own, "The word hidden in Rome shall break the yoke." A group of pilgrims in Poland said they saw a lamb outlined in lightning above their cathedral. In a convent in Nigeria, a blind nun wrote a message in Latin she had never learned. He has seen the scroll. It is time. Even nature groans. Solar flares surge without explanation. A blood moon appears on a date with no forecast. Birds circle the Vatican at midnight, forming strange spirals above the dome, like heavenly watchers gathering for the moment, when the veil will finally rip. And now, the eyes of the world turn to a single day. Sunday. It is whispered that on this day, during the Mass of the Transfiguration, Tagle will rise to speak. No script, no printed homily, just a man and the message burning in his bones. Already the faithful have begun to gather. Albano cannot contain them. They come by train, by foot, by prayer. They sleep in pews, weep at the altar, fast in alleyways. They don't know exactly why they're here, but their spirits do. They feel it. Heaven is about to thunder, and those within the church who understand the times are not sleeping. Pope Leo XIV is said to have blessed Tagle privately last night, placing a hand over his heart and whispering one line from Isaiah, "You were chosen before the womb. You are fire in the hollow of my hand." Cardinals watch, some in awe, some in fear. Not all are friends, not all are ready, but readiness no longer matters. Because once the truth is spoken, it cannot be unspoken, and so Sunday will come, the bells will ring, Tagle will walk to the pulpit, wearing not just vestments, but destiny itself. The world will hold its breath, and when he speaks, it won't be for applause, it won't be political, it won't even be safe. It will be the truth that was hidden in the conclave. It will be the scroll, the vision, the cry of heaven wrapped in human voice, because the church must hear it, because the veil has lifted, because the Lamb is roaring, and when his final word echoes through the marble and the sky splits with thunder, the whole world will know he kept it hidden. But now, God has spoken. Amen.